finally, 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 you have found a day and a time that works for everyone, and you're all going to sit down and try to figure out exactly what this game is going to be, how you're going to run it, where you're going to start. It's time for session zero. Hi there, I'm Dr. Megan Connell, and this is Psychology at the Table. In one of my previous seasons, we talked about session zero, but since that time, the idea of session zero and the acceptance of running a session zero has really exploded. And so I thought it would be worthwhile to revisit this topic and to talk a little bit more in detail about what session zero is, what it encompasses, and so on. So, what is a session zero? So, session zero is the meeting that you have before you all start getting together to run the game. It's where you're going to talk about what topics are go and no go for the game. What kind of characters do we want to play? What kind of heroes do we want to be? Do we want to have a theme for the game? Do we want it to be horror? Do we want it to be epic fantasy? Do we want it to be a comedy? How do we want this game to run? We're also going to talk through how we deal with conflicts, how we deal with disputes, and just to kind of set up those guidelines, not for the story necessarily of the game, but for how we agree to play the game. And so it's a really great way to make sure that everybody is on the same page. And so let's talk through a few different aspects of session zero. The first one is your game overview. So this is one of the most common problems that I see on tabletop subreddits where people have different expectations of the game. One person maybe expects that PvP is totally cool and allowed and it should be part of the game. Other people don't like that and it ruins their fun. And so when we have that good overview of what the game is supposed to be, to include the themes of the game, talking about, the genre, the style of game. Like if I come and I want to play like a Deadlands kind of Wild West campaign, but everybody else wants to run a zombie horror game, that might not fit. Maybe it does, but we have to talk about that to make sure that we're all on the same page. Another important thing to talk about are the stakes of your game. This is talking about the consequences of the player's actions. A lot of players, especially new players who are coming from video games, might not understand that their actions of their characters can have lasting impacts. That, if they break a lot of laws in a town, their characters might not be able to return to that town because there's going to be wanted posters up everywhere. Talking about character death, how likely is that? Is resurrection available? What are our thoughts around that? And this again helps to make sure that everybody has appropriate expectations for the game and that we're all on that same page. We also want to talk about the outcomes. So, what outcomes and impact can your characters have on the world? Talking to your players and saying, hey, at low levels, a lot of people are going to ignore your characters, and that's okay because you're low level. As you gain in reputation, you gain in power, your characters are naturally going to gain and garner more respect and have more powerful outcomes on the events of the world. And so when we have those ideas of kind of the general genre and feel of the game and make sure that everybody is on the same page and wants to play that game, we're going to set ourselves up for success. Another really important part of session zero is to talk about like your no and no go topics. So this is where we talk about the fact that we want to have fun, and this isn't a time to be bringing up stuff that just isn't fun and isn't enjoyable for us. If you have not read it, I highly suggest go out and get the free PDF from Monte Cook Games called Consent in Gaming. It is a wonderful overview of why getting consent for topics is so important, how it can add to the fun and the experience of everybody at the table. And it has a free little checklist that you can use at the very end to go over different topics that you might or might not have come up in the game. And again, this just really helps to ensure that your players know what's coming or have an idea of what topics are, might be approached in the game, and a way for them to safely communicate to you, like, hey, I'm arachnophobic and I don't want spiders in the game, or something along those lines. Another important aspect of session zero is going over what are commonly called safety tools. It's a kind of a weird name for something that's a communication device, because that's really what we're talking about here, is a simple way to communicate between the game master and the players to the game master about how we're feeling about the content of the game in a given moment. I recommend using dynamic safety tools where the GM can sometimes do what I would call a vibe check of just like if we're in a creepy place that maybe has some body horror or something like that, just going, hey guys, how's everyone doing? And we can have like a little smiley face to indicate I'm good. A little kind of meh face for not bad. but I'm not loving this, an X for like, nope, this is terrible, and then a pause button for like, I need to ask some clarification questions because I'm confused. And those tools are really, really helpful. Are used outside of just like the vibe check. The smiley face would be for your vibe check, but other times, like if, say, we're in a confined space and there are lots of spiders around, and I'm starting to realize, like, oh, this is actually bringing up my arachnophobia, just imagining this situation. I could put out that little meh face and let the game master know, like, I'm not loving this, and I would really love it if maybe we pivoted the story some other way. And so those safety tools are really great to help the game master and the players feel okay with communicating their comfort with what's going on in the game. Another great thing to go over in session zero are the game master's expectations of their players. Talk about what you want to see. Like when you say that the game starts at 7, does that mean people start arriving at 7, or does that mean we're rolling dice at 7? Telling them what you want out of the game, talking about player versus player, talking about when dice rolls can occur. Can players just say they want to do something and roll the dice, or does the game master need to say yes or no to that? Talking about crosstalk, just seeing what you want out of your players to make sure that you as a game master are enjoying the game just as much as your players are. Session zero is also a great time just to go over your house rules. So, like, if there's any deviations that you have from the rules as written for whatever gaming system you're using, this is a great time to talk that out and to go over that with your players. And then finally, the last thing to do is just to go over other information, whether or not you're okay with your players contacting you between games, where you're going to contact. Is that they can text you? Do they message you on Discord through like your virtual tabletop? If you're hosting a virtual tabletop, how often is that going to be up for players to access, and so on? So there's just a lot of different things that you can go over on session zero. And again, the biggest thing there is that it really helps people have that understanding of what to expect from the game. And so it's like thinking about, what do I want people to know about my game to make sure that it's a good fit for them? It's really frustrating when we start a game and halfway through realize a bunch of the players just aren't a good fit for the style of story we're telling. And so session zero does a whole lot to clean that up and to help you make sure that your players are happy and you've got great players for your game. Anyway, that's just a little bit on session zero. I hope that is helpful to you. If you have questions or comments, please leave them below. And as always, let's make space at the table for everyone.